Hey everyone, it's Cosmin, and in this video I'm showing you how to make my sugar-free chocolate cherry and hazelnut mousse cake, a deeply luxurious entremet for true connoisseurs. This is not a light, airy mousse cake. This is dense, sensual, profoundly nutty indulgence. It's finished with a glossy red cocoa glaze and decorated with a golden chocolate spiral, which is the only component of this creation that contains sugar. So let's get to it. Here I have 40 grams of hazelnut paste, and to it I'm adding 50 grams of condensed milk. Use a soft silicone spatula or a spoon to mix them well until the mixture is homogeneous, then set the bowl aside. In my mixing bowl I have 2 eggs at room temperature. Mix them briefly on a low speed until they're homogeneous, and then add 40 grams of xylitol. Now continue mixing on high speed until the eggs more than double in volume, and then add 5 grams of olive oil. Continue mixing on a lower speed to release the bigger air bubbles and to make your cake rise evenly in the oven. Now take some of the egg fluff and mix it into the hazelnut mixture. When it's homogeneous, pour this mixture over your spatula into the egg mixture and continue mixing on a low speed until everything comes together. Now take a silicone spatula to scrape the sides and bottom of the bowl. In my bowl I have 50 grams of hazelnut powder, 30 grams of almond flour, a quarter of a teaspoon of vanilla powder, and a tiny pinch of salt. I like to mix them all together before adding them to the eggs. There's no need to insist with the mixer. Just until everything comes together is enough. Then take the spatula again to scrape the sides and bottom of the bowl and get this very fluid batter into an 18 cm silicone mold. Tap the mold against your work surface for a couple of times and then bake the cake in a preheated oven at 150 Celsius for 25 minutes. Let it cool down to room temperature in the mold. Here I have 500 grams of sugar-free cherry jam, and to it I'm adding 50 grams of lemon juice. You're not going to need that much, but it was the only way for me to blend it without adding any air. I'm going to use the remainder in another recipe. Once the puree is smooth, you can set it aside. Now hydrate a gelatin sheet in ice cold water and let it rest. And now it's time to take this gluten-free hazelnut cake out of its mold. So to do that, cover the mold with a serving platter and flip it. The cake will fall onto the platter. And there it is. How nice is it? Use a 16 cm cake ring to cut a circle. This step is necessary to get those beautiful symmetrical layers inside the entremet. Use your non-dominant hand to keep the cake in place while you gently lift the ring away with the other one. To get this even side inside the entremet, we're gonna have to flip the cake again. But don't worry, it's quite sturdy even if it's so flexible. Carefully cover the cake with a 16 cm silicone mold and flip it one last time. And there you have it, the even surface is facing you. Here I have 200 grams of the cherry jam puree I made earlier, and I heat it in the microwave until the thermometer reads 60 degrees Celsius. This is an ideal temperature to add the gelatin, so squeeze out the excess water and add it to the puree. Mix well and you'll notice that it becomes shinier and glossier. Pour the pureed jam over the cake. And until I finish, you can hit the subscribe button. Remove the bigger air bubbles with your spatula and don't worry about the small ones. After cooling, freeze the insert for 4 hours. For the mousse, we're going to need 3 gelatin sheets hydrated in ice cold water. Set it aside and let's see to the other ingredients. In my heat-proof bowl, I have 120 grams of whipping cream, and to that I'm adding 20 grams of xylitol and half a teaspoon of vanilla bean paste. Give these a good stir and then add 120 grams of semi-sweet sugar-free chocolate. Now take this to the microwave and heat it in intervals to avoid boiling the cream. Mix very well until you have a beautiful glossy ganache, and then take the temperature. The thermometer should read about 60 degrees Celsius. And now it's time to add the gelatin. Just make sure you squeeze out all the excess water because we don't need any more liquid in there. Mix well and try to avoid adding more air. You'll notice that the gelatin dissolves immediately. And now, let's add 120 grams of hazelnut paste. If this is too much for you, cut back on 20 grams and replace those with chocolate. But I really like the intensity. Now mix this very well until the mixture is homogeneous. You'll notice that it thickens quite a bit. Here I have 220 grams of very cold whipping cream that I'm whipping by hand to a very soft pea consistency. When you're done whipping, take about a fourth of the cream and add it to the chocolate mixture. Start mixing with the spatula, but then switch to the whisk to get a really homogeneous result. And now, the chocolate mixture is cold enough so you can add it all at once to the whipped cream. And once all that beautiful chocolate is in there, use the whisk to combine the two into a beautiful, delicious, fragrant hazelnut mousse. Finish off with the silicone spatula to scrape the sides and bottom of the bowl. Immediately pour this gorgeous mousse into an 18 cm silicone mold. Push it against the walls of the mold with the spatula to avoid any big air bubbles on the sides of the cake, and then tap the mold against the work surface for a few times. Use the tip of the spatula or a toothpick to burst the bigger air bubbles that came to the surface. And now, remove the frozen inserts from the smaller mold. It's best if you work very fast and wear gloves because that cherry jam is very delicate. Place the frozen insert right in the middle of the mousse and press it down until the cake and the mousse are at the same level. Freeze the entremet for 8 hours. For the glaze, we're gonna need 6 gelatin sheets hydrated in ice cold water, and you should make the glaze immediately after freezing the cake. In my pot, I have 100 grams of glucose syrup, and to it I'm adding 100 grams of water, 100 grams of xylitol, and 100 grams of condensed milk. Stir gently and then bring the mixture to a rolling boil. Then cut the heat and add 50 grams of red cocoa. Mix vigorously for 1 or 2 minutes and then remove the pot from the stove. Let it sit for a couple of minutes until the thermometer reads 60 degrees Celsius. At that point, it's safe to add the gelatin. Squeeze out the excess water and add all the gelatin to the hot cocoa mix. Stir very well to make sure that all the gelatin is completely dissolved. And then pour the glaze into a high pitcher, but do it through a sieve. This way, you'll filter out any possible small cocoa lumps. To give the glaze a reddish hue, I'm adding a bit of food coloring, but that's entirely optional. And so is this glitter. Use it if you like it, if not, leave it out. I really like the look though. Now blend the glaze for 2 whole minutes. Always keep the blender at an angle and remove it very carefully to avoid adding air. Cover the glaze with plastic wrap directly on the surface, let it cool down to room temperature, and then refrigerate it for 8 hours. To make the chocolate spiral, we're gonna need 150 grams of white chocolate, and I'm gradually melting it in the microwave in several intervals. You really shouldn't keep the intervals longer than 30 seconds to avoid burning the chocolate. When the thermometer reads 45 degrees Celsius, stop heating the chocolate. I really prefer the seeding method, and that's why I'm adding some solid chocolate to the melted one. Now continue stirring well and never stop until the chocolate reaches approximately 30 degrees Celsius. Pour the entire amount of chocolate over an acetate sheet that's twice as high as the cake. Spread it into an even layer using a large offset spatula. As soon as you have an even layer, stop. If you insist with the spatula too much, you'll inhibit the chocolate's natural ability to contract properly. Immediately lift the sheet away and run your fingers against the edges. This will give your chocolate spiral a smooth finish. And now let the chocolate rest for a couple of minutes, but you're gonna have to keep an eye on it. The second it turns dull and no longer sticks, you're gonna have to cut it. And for that, I'm using a ruler, a long one, and I'm cutting it diagonally. Once the cut is done, wrap it around a cake ring that has the same diameter as your cake. And now, keep it in the fridge for an hour or simply let it set at room temperature until you're ready to decorate the cake. After that time has passed, peel away the tape and very carefully lift away the chocolate circle from the ring. All you have to do now is simply peel away the acetate, but do it slowly and carefully. You don't want to break the spiral. And actually, because of the cut you made, you're gonna have two spirals. Just lift one of the spirals away, and voila, there you have them, two chocolate spirals to choose from. The chocolate is quite sturdy and a bit elastic, and you can see how shiny it is. That means it's been tempered properly. You should, however, handle it with care. I like to brush it with an antique gold coloring dust, but that's entirely optional. The color, however, and all that shine it adds gives the cake a more sophisticated and elegant look. The next morning, it's finally time to glaze, decorate, and enjoy this beautiful cake. Gently reheat the glaze in the microwave, stirring between intervals. Keep an eye on the temperature, it shouldn't be higher than 50 degrees Celsius. Then, blend it again for another 2 minutes. Very carefully remove the blender to avoid adding air, and then give the glaze a stir every once in a while. Every couple of minutes, check the temperature, and when it reaches 38 degrees Celsius, it's time to glaze the cake. So now take the cake out of the freezer and remove it from the mold. I have an inverted bowl that's sitting on the plate where I painted a spiral. I don't want to waste all that color on the plate, and the glaze is going to take it up, because I am going to use the remaining glaze for another cake. Place the entremet on the bowl and pour the glaze at 38 degrees Celsius. Start from the center and circle your way outwards. If you like what you're seeing, subscribe, hit the like button, and tell me in the comments below what you think. After the glaze stops dripping, use a small, sharp knife to remove all the drippings from the bottom of the cake, and then take 2 large offset spatulas and transfer the entremet to a serving platter. With the cake at a very slight angle, start pulling away the spatulas alternatively, and that's it. The entremet needs 6 hours in the fridge to thaw. And look how beautiful and shiny that glaze is after 6 hours in the fridge. Very carefully lift the spiral and wrap it around the cake. And try to be more careful than I was and don't touch the glaze. How beautiful and elegant is that? And it's finally time to take a look on the inside. But first, let's enjoy the slicing. The cake slices easily. To get those beautiful, clean slices, it's best if you wipe the knife clean between cuts. And voila! Here it is, our beautiful and delicious chocolate, cherry, and hazelnut mousse cake. Enjoy! See you next time, dessert lovers!